Hey, howdy everybody. I know that I'm a bit late to the party on this one, but I finally got a chance to watch that liminal sensation that is the movie The Backrooms. Now, I want to call it an underground hit because of its origins as a YouTube series, but let's be fair, it is a pretty major motion picture studio that took up this project. And after watching it, I do have a couple thoughts, and I'd like to share those with you, right? First and foremost, if you are a fan of this type of surreal and dreamy aesthetic, then I definitely recommend that you watch this. The visuals, they're extremely interesting, and I think the soundscapes were very well done. So this gives the entire movie a vibe where it really does feel like you're getting lost inside of a maze of your own subconscious, of your own dreams. You know, in fact, I had a dream a few days ago where I lived on an open floor glass house, and it was situated right smack in the middle of this vacant shopping center. And spoiler alert, there are many scenes remarkably similar to that in this Kane Parsons cinematic debut. The entire movie itself is chock full of these nightmarish scenes of this realm, I want to call it, this sprawling and never-ending, just massive place. And it incorporates these scenes from your regular waking life, but there's just something off-kilter about them. Something's just not quite right? It's, I dare say something is quite off. And when you have a nightmare like this, I think that the movie itself does a great job of really demonstrating the dreadful feelings that encompass these experiences, you know? There's this sensation of being alone or lost, and I personally really vibe with that, right? A lot of my dreams have that theme. And I am also a bit biased because I do love me some dreamcore, right? In fact, the goddess that this channel is named after is a deity of crossroads and thresholds, and I dare ask you, what on God's green earth is more liminal than that? Anybody? But anyway, despite all of this, this movie was not without fault. The narrative was sparse at best, and the character performances, well, let's just say they weren't my cup of tea. And that's not a dig on Renate. I'm not going to even attempt to pronounce these last names. It's not a dig on Renate or Chiwetel. I'm sure that they were doing what they were told. It's just that I feel like the characters' motivations just weren't there for me, you know? And all throughout the movie, their dialogues just felt as unnatural as the eerie setting of the film, which I'm wondering now, was that deliberate? If it was, well then, congratulations, they met their mark, but I still was not pleased with that, right? To me, the few instances of meaningful dialogue felt more like the soliloquies of a third-rate wannabe YouTuber. And now I really have to sit there and digest what I just said. Anyway, all things considered, this movie is definitely something you should watch at least once. If I'm honest, I would give it a solid 6 out of 10. And even with that barely passing score, it certainly was a thought-provoking experience, and it lingered around in my mind for a while, actually, much like the entities in that movie do in the Backrooms. Now, because this movie has a Lynchian or open-ended quality to it, the viewer is responsible for interpreting it the way that they best deem fit. So I did make sure to go into this experience blind. I'm not familiar with the Backrooms lore, apart from the basic original post, which I'll be showing there on the screen. So I am really excited because I'm not here to review the movie. I wanted to give you my interpretation of it, right? I'm certainly not a film critic. I hate having to, talk candidly in a negative manner, especially regarding something that took an immense amount of time and work from very talented collaborators. I know that there are dozens, hundreds, sometimes even thousands of people that get together to make just one film. So, I really recommend watching it, especially so that you can come out here and share your own interpretations of the film, right? So let's get into it. This is what I perceived was the meaning, and I know that this is different for everybody, and from what I see, the director has been adamant to remain a little bit closed off in terms of, providing some type of, objective, quote unquote, objective meaning to the film. I think that the idea there is to encourage people to think about it in their own way. So I take that as an open invitation. Anyways, I'm going to shut the hell up now and talk about my analysis of this movie. And this is based on the sense that I was trying to make of the movie as I was watching it. So remember, this is just my take, not the official one. Not that there is one, again, as far as I'm aware. So maybe it doesn't add up, maybe it does, I don't know. But fair warning here, spoilers ahead from this point on. I'd like to start the analysis by talking a little bit about the characters. The main characters are an architect, a psychologist, and some type of secret, top secret government researcher who specialized on this MRI technology prior to discovering the Backrooms. Now, those roles do not seem arbitrarily selected to me, so I believe that there's a certain mental component that the creators are giving a lot of protagonism, right? Especially with the MRI and the psychologist. I can see where people would get this as a Freudian manifestation, right? It's a very common trope, especially when you have like three major characters. For example, maybe somebody could say, the arrogant architect is the ego, the stoic psychologist, the superego. But then this falls apart, right? Because who is the it? Is it the ill-fated teenagers? Because if there's anything here that looks subconscious, to me, it's not a character, it's the Backrooms themselves. So, I don't know. I don't know enough about that. So, that's the thing about this take for me. I only took intro to psych, so I am therefore unqualified to talk about this at length, lest I fall prey to the Dunning-Kruger effect and make a giant ass out of myself. And then B, I am of the opinion that there's this other phenomenon called the Barnum effect, and it's going to make me, or anybody thinking about this, possibly, cherry pick and amplify certain aspects of the characters to sort of, pigeonhole them or force them into one of these specific molds. So instead of taking that route, I wanted to explore where my mind was going based on my weird ass ideas about the world and the thematic images that make me feel certain things. So my take was this. We are all in the Backrooms. That's what it is. Existence itself. This place here in the movie, it begs no definition, and people simply exist within it. And there are no answers, right? One day the characters were just minding their own business. The next moment, they are plunged straight into this strange realm with no rhyme or reasons, no answers as to why. And that feels, again, analogous to being ripped from the void of existence and then being born, right? The main character, Clark, is a failed architect and owner of a perpetually vacant furniture store, which I think, by the way, is an excellent setup. What can get more liminal than that? Anyway, this character simply just falls through a wall and he lands in this place. Again, no explanation as to why it was there or even where it is. So this man was just thrust into this mildewy and dank world of office corridors, and he's immediately mapping out everything in this uncharted territory. That's it. That's his instinct. He approaches it with excitement despite the inexplicable threats that lurk within it that I don't believe were ever really resolved for me, right? They were just there. The thing is, though, I think that's just the point. Whether he was in or out of this fantastic dimension, at the end of the day, the rules were very similar. In fact, they remained exactly the same to a certain extent. The rules were just survive. And when he gets out of this place, when he exits the Backrooms, the first thing he does is tell other characters about it. But when he's already stepped out, I noticed something a little contrived about the clouds in the sky. That single cloud, I think it was just one, that was looming there, hanging over the scene. it just seemed artificial, you know? And, well, that to me seems like blurring the boundaries between the back rooms and reality. And I think this is further corroborated by the issues that each one of these characters were experiencing prior to even setting foot in the back rooms, and that was the profound emptiness of their lives. So the dread that the back rooms represents here was not unique to this place. Maybe it was more pronounced there, but it was something that, again, they had already been feeling. But then something about that just kept nagging at me the whole time that I was watching this movie. And it's the specificity of the setting. I mean, why the office aesthetic? Why the yellow dim lights? The geometrically convoluted and vast emptiness, right? If this is representative of existence, then why does it all seem to encompass just this 20th century corporate aesthetic, right? Is it like in The Matrix, you know, where that was the highlight of humanity? I was just thinking about this and I couldn't quite put my finger on what it was. And then it hit me, at least from the angle that I was watching it from. And it was, again, why do we exist in this corporate world right now? I exist, this is a place, and I'm giving away hours of my life to a meaningless job just so that I can exist and in turn spend more hours there. If we divorce the human architecture, we rip apart the human architecture from this world, or from this story, I should say, then all we're left with is a tale about some people who maybe got lost in the jungle or a desert or something to that effect. It's just, in essence, a primitive survival story, right? In a world that is typified by primordial oddity, by just the strangeness of reality, of things that exist that beg no question. They're just there. But again, that's what we got. That is still what we got. The threats in this world, entities. And get this, what danger do they pose, you ask? Oh, you're gonna like this. They eat you. Now, what a novel and unheard of concept. Entities that eat you. Where else have I seen that? It brings to mind Hal's character in the sitcom Malcolm in the Middle. He says something like, life is scary. Life is things eating things. And that's one of those quotes that has stuck with me throughout my life. Because we do it to animals all the time. And look, I'm not going to sit here and debate the ethics, but at the very least, we cannot deny that we are all entities in this world, if that is the metric that we're defining these entities by. Now, if there is some deeper lore to this that I'm missing, and it is glaring to the superfans of the Backrooms and all of the internet videos and all that, then remember, I'm just basing my analysis off of the film itself, and that's the theme that, to me, was pushed and then continuously echoed, especially when Clark referred to the entities that he sat at the dinner table with as something akin to just mere furniture. These unthinking things. They just came with the place. He slices one open with absolutely no regard to its autonomy, by the way. That was freaky. And he rips out what looks like mashed potatoes. And he said something like, "The best part about this is you can eat them." And if there are three fears that this movie evokes, and evokes well, it's the fear of the endless, the unknown. The fear of being alone, and then again that primal fear of being chased down and eaten by some predator. And all of those apply to the real world just as much as they do to the Backrooms. Another thing of note is how when Clark first enters, he hears voices on a pre-recorded cutout stand of a man, and they are in different languages. We understand these sounds as having meaning because, again, we are preloaded with context, and I don't know why I just said again. But yeah, we're preloaded with context. See, I don't speak Russian or Arabic, but I'm pretty sure that I could tell that the voices spoke these languages at one point, and they were switching between several languages. So while I was listening, I could catch like a konnichiwa, genki desu, arigatou gozaimasu. I make sense of that despite the fact that it's not in my language. You know, guten tag, buenos dias, bonjour, all this is meaningful just because I've stockpiled knowledge about these languages over the several decades that I've been alive. However, the longer we are in this world, and by this world I'm talking now about the Backrooms, just FYI, the sounds just degrade. They become more and more abstract and horrifying. They devolve into just shrieks and moans. And that's how language probably would sound if you strip it of its meaning and context. Now, if this entity speaking in these type sounds is frightening to us, just imagine the way that a casual conversation sounds to a pig or a chicken at a slaughterhouse as they wait in line to be made into food. And again, I'm not here to debate the ethics. These are just facts. We eat, as a species, a lot of this livestock, right? I'm sure their experience is much less than pleasant, right? So, to me, it was fitting that Clark, seemingly at least, adapted so well to the Backrooms, considered that he represented a frustrated man, devoid of meaning, but also apparently a competent architect, right? Because the longer this man is in this dimension, we can see more how he shapes the place in his image. We start seeing how areas of his life start taking this prominent protagonism. They're displayed in the Backrooms themselves. And there are even places that are distortions or echoes of his failed furniture store. And they become the settings to a lot of key scenes in the movie. So Clark embraced the violent nature of this world. He found this place and he carved his face into it. One of the most disturbing entities in the movie was just a bizarro copy of himself, right? Ultimately, though, despite him being able to make peace with this uncanny zone, at the end of the day, he still finds his death in it. And I mean, just like anybody else who has ever been alive, right? The American empire that gave rise to this office aesthetic, right now it might be built to last, right? We might see this as happening forever, or might not, depending on where you stand on the political spectrum. But I'm sure that the Ottoman Empire felt the same way until it ultimately failed. And by the way, that's the name of Clark's furniture store, I think. Captain Clark's Ottoman Empire, which I just appreciated that nice furniture pun. I know it wasn't accidental, because one of his assistants at one point is helping him record a commercial, and the symbols are real mixed, and he says something like, "So are you like a pirate, a sultan? What are we going for here?" And I think it doesn't matter, because we're all doomed to wander the halls of the Backrooms until ultimately they swallow us up and spit out a copy of a copy of a copy of us. Just like in that movie Idiocracy, where in the future, Charlie Chaplin's image was still alive and plastered in places, but not as himself, more so as a distortion. They had him as the villain of the Second World War. Now, I don't know if that was in Idiocracy or if that was in Futurama, but I mean, they're both satirical, so the point is still made, I hope. So that is Clark. So Clark represents that to me. Now, Dr. Mary Klein, the psychologist protagonist, she deals with the place in a very different way. She approaches it cautiously and then falls into the hands of Clark after he's been swallowed up by the Backrooms, after he's on his power trip. He actually ties her up, she's at his mercy, and she's forced to just help him face his small and wounded ego. There's this scene where they're at the dinner table. I mentioned it previously. Well, Clark is giving this monologue that they had done together in a therapy session earlier in the movie in the real world, right? Because I didn't mention that she was his therapist, right? During the dinner table scene that I'm talking about, Clark is super unhinged, and it seems he's oblivious to the dangers of this realm. He's just kind of seeing himself as this powerful figure that has dominion over it or something. But Clark is ultimately killed by his inability to contend with the glaring danger that he's in. And Dr. Mary Klein is able to escape with her life. She spends the rest of the movie escaping from first Clark and then the entity that killed Clark, which is his bizarro replica. So throughout this pursuit, we see her go into areas very reminiscent of those that Clark lived in. Again, the world made from the visions of the architect man. And when she finally escapes, she sneaks in through this narrow path that is completely walled on both sides. And as she squeezes through there, she comes out on the other side. And that is where we see men in hazmat suits. They spray her down with chemicals and then they take her through what seems like a hospital corridor. And again, to me, this continued to evoke the imagery of birth, of being born, of being alive. But the thing is that Dr. Mary Klein, she had already been dealing with the bleak and empty situations her whole life. Her mother seemed to have this like pathological phobia of the world or something like that led her to being institutionalized. And Dr. Mary Klein, when she walked into the Backrooms through the same threshold everyone else did, she was already coming from that world, right? It was familiar, like I mentioned. It's this chaotic and ever-changing world of dangers made in the image of mortal men. And this place was nothing new to her. And a pivotal moment, in my opinion, that led her to being in danger was when she trusted a mortal man, right? She trusted Clark, and what does he do? He chokes her into unconsciousness, right? Yeah, he chokes her unconscious and ties her up so that she can play house with him. He gets controlling and aggressive, but Dr. Mary Klein was discerning, so she just told Clark everything that he needed to hear, just so that she could get untied by him. So ultimately, the way that the doctor navigated the world ensured her survival. And when she finally ended up at that Async Research Institute at the end, she smiled because she realized that the idea that she could hold on hope for a different world was an exercise in futility, right? This place she was in was no difference. She's just been crossing from one threshold to another threshold to another since birth. So I interpreted this as a sort of a quiet acceptance of life. And they mentioned this dialogue. They said it, I believe, twice, and it's, we all have our loops, our habits, behaviors that keep us walking in circles, reaching for the same solutions over and over again, thinking each time will take you something new. But they don't. And, well, that pretty much sums it up, right? Ultimately, we just appear as these short, fleshy blips in an immense and uncaring world, and just as soon as we're there, we're gone. Sometimes we leave something behind, but even that is only ever an echo. So I think that's what this movie was going for. But again, I'm only sharing my experience. I haven't gone to look up anyone else's interpretations, so maybe this is a very obvious thing to people. I imagine it is, but after I upload this, I'm going to look that up. All in all, though, you should definitely watch this movie. It might be boring to you or it might be really good, but one thing is for certain, it will at least force you to think about things in a strange way, with an eerie vibe, and it forces you to draw your own conclusions. And that pretty much sums up my analysis of why I think the Backrooms are just an extension of reality. I hope that you enjoyed this video. It would mean a lot to me if you liked, shared, subscribed, if you liked my content. I don't always do faceless videos like this. I'm going to try to do a healthy mix of everything, right? I have a lot of interests, so I'm just starting off here on YouTube. If you liked this format, let me know, and I have a lot of thoughts. I'm a very opinionated individual, and I would be happy to upload more and more. Even if nobody likes this, I'm still going to upload, so what can you do but like and subscribe? All right, y'all have a good one.